The throne room of the Zarkathi Empire was built to crush hope. Its ceiling rose so high that shadows lived there forever. The walls were carved from the remains of conquered worlds, stone taken from broken capitals, metals melted from defeated fleets. Every step inside that hall reminded visitors that resistance was useless. At the center stood the throne. It was not made for comfort. It was made for dominance. The alien queen sat upon it, tall and terrifying, her armored form glowing with faint crimson light. Her eyes were like burning stars, cold and endless. She had ruled for centuries. Entire species had bowed or burned at her feet. Her name alone had ended wars before they began. Now, for the first time in many years, she was angry. Before her, on the black floor of the hall, lay a single object. Human armor. It was not polished. It was not beautiful. Compared to the elegant weapons of the Zarkathi, it looked rough and simple. But it was broken in a way that told a story. Deep claw marks, cracked plating, melted edges from plasma fire. And yet, it had not failed. The queen leaned forward slowly, her claws resting on the arms of her throne. She remembered the battle clearly. Her strongest hunter had faced a single human soldier wearing this armor. The hunter was faster, stronger, smarter. And still, the human had stood, even when wounded, even when outmatched, even when death was certain. That armor, the queen said, her voice echoing through the hall like distant thunder, should not exist. Around her stood her generals, creatures of many shapes and sizes, each one responsible for the destruction of worlds. Their armor shined. Their weapons hummed with power. Yet none of them met her gaze. Silence spread through the hall. The queen rose from her throne. The sound of her movement alone made several officers flinch. She stepped down, walking toward the broken human armor. With one claw, she lifted the chest plate effortlessly. It bent slightly in her grip, but it did not shatter. Her eyes narrowed. My strongest hunter struck this with full force, she said. It survived. She turned sharply toward her generals. Who made it? No one answered. The silence grew heavier, thicker, almost painful. The queen's tail lashed the air. Every weapon has a maker. Every tool has a name behind it. Still, nothing. Her voice dropped lower, more dangerous. Speak. One general, older than the others and marked by scars from ancient wars, stepped forward. His head bowed low. Your Majesty, he said carefully, we do not know. The queen's eyes burned brighter. You dare lie to me? The general shook. No, Your Majesty. We know where the armor came from. We know the species, but not the name you seek. The queen crushed part of the armor in her hand. Metal screamed, but even then it resisted. Find the armorer, she commanded. Bring them to me in chains. The general hesitated. That hesitation shocked the hall more than any weapon. Explain, the queen demanded. The general swallowed. Humans do not honor their armorers the way we do, Your Majesty. They do not carve statues. They do not sing names. The queen stepped closer until her shadow swallowed him. Then how do they remember them? The general spoke softly, as if afraid the words themselves might anger her. They don't, he said. They remember what the armor was made for. The queen turned back to the broken chest plate. For a moment, she saw something she did not like, a memory of the human soldier using his last strength not to strike, but to shield another. Her grip tightened. Bring me a human, she said at last. Any human. Her generals bowed in relief and fear. As they moved to obey. The queen stared at the armor once more. She did not yet understand it, but deep inside her ancient mind, a dangerous thought began to form. What kind of species builds armor not to conquer, but to endure? And why did that thought make the throne room feel so very quiet? The throne room was quiet, but the silence was not peaceful. It was the heavy, uneasy quiet of fear mixed with confusion. The generals and commanders of the Zarkathi Empire had faced countless enemies, crushed hundreds of worlds, and yet here they stood, frozen, unable to speak. The alien queen's gaze, sharp as a plasma blade, scanned each of them. Her presence was a force that demanded obedience, yet no one dared to answer her question. Who made the human armor? The queen did not understand silence. In her empire, silence meant defiance, and defiance was punished with death. Usually, someone would step forward, either to save their life or to claim glory. But now, nothing. Not a single whisper, not a single name. Her claws scraped the floor, sending tiny sparks across the black crystal. The generals shifted nervously under her burning eyes. But none moved to speak. Finally, the oldest commander, a massive figure marked by scars and the rusted remnants of ancient battles, lowered his head and spoke with careful restraint. "Your Majesty, humans do not speak of their armorers. They do not name those who craft such things." The queen's eyes narrowed. "Every tool has a maker. Every weapon has a name. Are you saying they are nameless? They value the armor for its purpose, not its maker," the commander said, his voice trembling. "The armor carries their courage, their hope. But the one who built it may remain unknown." The queen's roar shook the hall. "Unknown? Impossible. If this armor resisted my hunter, if it survived fire and claw, then the mind behind it is worthy of my recognition. I will have a name." The generals flinched. One of them whispered, "Your Majesty." Perhaps they honor the living more than the maker. Perhaps their names are in their deeds, not in statues or crowns. The queen froze for a heartbeat. She had never heard of such thinking. Power was everything to her: control, dominance, fear. Yet this human way of thinking, it was different, alien, dangerous. "What is this?" she hissed, crouching slightly over the armor, now lying on the floor. "Do these humans fight not to conquer, but to survive?" The old commander nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty. They fight to protect, to endure, to return home. That is their strength." The queen's claws dug into the floor. She felt a strange tension in her chest. It was a sensation she rarely experienced, something between irritation and fear. Could a species truly resist her, not because of power, but because of hope? "Then bring me one of these humans," she said finally, her voice cold and commanding. "I will see their courage for myself. I will find the mind behind this armor, even if it hides among thousands." The generals bowed low, careful not to draw attention to themselves. The room remained silent, but now the silence held something else, an uneasy curiosity, even among her own officers. They did not understand why their queen, the conqueror of worlds, seemed unsettled. As the preparations to capture a human began, the queen returned her gaze to the broken armor. She remembered the hunter who had failed, the way the human soldier had stood despite wounds, despite pain, despite certain death. The queen's mind, sharp and ruthless for centuries, felt a flicker of something new. She did not yet understand it, but she sensed the beginning of a dangerous thought. What if a mind that builds to protect, not to dominate, can survive me? The queen rose fully, her crimson light blazing. The throne room shook under her presence, yet in that moment, a strange stillness settled over her generals. They understood that they were witnessing something unprecedented. The alien queen, unchallenged for centuries, feeling doubt. Her voice cut the silence again. "Prepare the transports. Bring a human before me, alive." The words carried weight, but they also carried a subtle, unspoken question, the first question she had asked herself in decades. Could survival, courage, and protection be stronger than power? As her orders were carried out, the queen crouched near the armor once more. Her gaze lingered on the scratched metal, the melted edges, the evidence of a fight that should have ended in death. And somewhere deep inside, she felt the first tremor of fear, a fear she did not yet understand. Because this time, victory might not be measured by strength, and she had never feared a human before. The transports arrived in the heart of the throne room, sliding over the black crystal floor with a quiet hum. The air seemed heavier now, as if the room itself sensed the presence of the creature they carried. Inside the reinforced cage was a human, small and fragile compared to the towering generals and the alien queen herself. His hands were rough and scarred, evidence of decades of labor. His hair was streaked with gray, and his eyes held a calm that defied the fear surrounding him. He did not struggle. He did not plead. He merely walked forward with slow, deliberate steps, as if he had already accepted whatever awaited him. The queen's glowing eyes followed him closely. She had conquered hundreds of species, each with warriors, kings, and shamans. Yet this one human drew her attention differently. He was not dressed in armor. He carried no weapon. He looked ordinary, even weak, and yet she sensed the story behind him. The armor on the floor had survived her deadliest hunter, and she knew, without understanding why, that this human was connected. "You," she said, her voice cutting through the hall like molten steel. "Step forward." The human stopped and looked up. His gaze met hers, steady and unwavering. The generals shifted uneasily, unsure how to respond. The queen's presence was meant to crush, to command obedience through fear, and yet this human did not shrink away. He did not flinch. "You will speak," the queen continued. "Tell me the name of the armorer. The one who created the armor that resisted my hunter, now." The human said nothing. The queen's claws scraped against the crystal floor. The sound was sharp, like a warning. "I will ask again," she said. "Who made the armor?" Silence. One of the generals, a tall creature with multiple limbs and glowing eyes, stepped forward. "Human," he warned, "your silence will bring death to your people." The human's lips moved, slowly, deliberately. "You already lost this war," he said softly. The words startled the hall. Guards froze. Generals blinked. The queen tilted her head, confused and intrigued. "You." "What?" she demanded, stepping closer, her claws ready to strike. "Explain yourself." The human's voice did not waver. "That armor you see, it was not made by one mind alone. Many hands touched it. Many hearts guided it. It carries more than steel. It carries hope." The queen's eyes narrowed and her crimson glow flared. "Explain." The human swallowed. "The armor was made by miners who dug the ore, by engineers who tested the alloys, by mothers who worked long hours so their children could learn. It was shaped by the knowledge of old men teaching the young. I assembled it, yes, but I am only one of thousands who touched it. And even then, it is not my strength, you see. It is theirs. It is theirs you cannot defeat." The queen's mind struggled to comprehend. She had always believed that victory belonged to the strongest, the cleverest, the one who could dominate. She had never met a species whose greatest weapon was not power, but collaboration. Not conquest, but protection. "You speak for many," she said, her voice lower, almost a whisper. "And yet you claim a single name is meaningless?" The human nodded. "Yes, names matter to humans. But the armor does not belong to one person. It belongs to everyone who made it. It is their promise, their hope, that keeps it standing." For a moment, the queen was silent. She looked down at the broken chest plate on the floor, remembering the soldier she had faced, the way he had endured every strike, every claw, every blast. She remembered the fear in the eyes of her hunter as it failed to bring him down. The thought that a species could survive not through domination, but through care, through unity, unsettled her in ways she had never experienced. The human stepped closer. "I am the armorer you seek, in a sense," he said softly. "But I am not alone. There are no single names here. Only the work we do for each other, so that one soldier can live to see the sky again." The queen's claws hovered in the air, unsure if she should strike or listen. This human. He was not afraid. He was not weak. And somehow, in that silence, he had already shown a power she could not crush with fleets or fire. "You claim protection over killing?" she asked, her voice strange even to her own ears. "Yes," the human replied, calmly. "That is what makes us human. That is what you cannot understand, alien queen. That is why your hunter failed." The throne room felt colder, heavier. The generals looked to each other, uncertain. Even they had never seen their queen hesitate. They had never seen her face doubt, and for the first time in centuries, the alien queen felt a dash uncertainty that she had met many warriors, many kings, many gods, but never one like this human, one who could face her, unarmed, unafraid, and still win, not with strength, but with truth. Her crimson eyes burned brighter. She stepped back slightly, her mind racing. For the first time, she realized that the war was no longer simple. The armor, the soldier, the human himself, they were more than weapons. They were a challenge she had never anticipated, and the queen, conqueror of worlds, began to understand that some battles could not be won by power alone. Some battles were fought in the hearts of those too small, too fragile, yet too brave to break. The throne room seemed colder now, though no wind blew. The alien queen, tall and fierce, remained standing, her glowing eyes fixed on the human before her. He was small, even fragile by her standards, yet the calm in his gaze was heavier than any fleet or army she had ever commanded. She could feel it, the weight of something she had never encountered before. "You speak of many hands," the queen said, her voice low, dangerous, yet tinged with curiosity. "Explain. Why do you hide behind the work of others? Why should I care for the countless nameless creatures who touch this armor?" The human shifted, his eyes steady. "Because it is not about me. Humans do not make armor to gain fame. We do not carve our names into every shield. We make armor so someone can live, so they can protect, so they can return home. That is our way. That is what matters." The queen's claws scraped the floor. The sound echoed like warning bells, but still the human did not flinch. "So, all this work, all this effort, is meaningless to you?" she demanded. "All these years of labor, all this talent, and you offer only words?" "Not words," the human replied softly, almost a whisper. "A promise. That armor carries more than steel. It carries the hope of survival. It carries courage. It carries love. Every strike it endured, every fire it survived, was a human promise that no one would die alone, that someone would always shield another. That is its power." The queen felt a flicker of something alien within her confusion. She had never feared humans. She had never needed to. They were weak, small, unorganized, but now she understood a subtle truth. Strength was not always measured in claws or fleets. Sometimes it was measured in devotion, in care, in the courage to protect even when death is certain. "You claim you made this armor," the queen said slowly. "Yet you admit you are only one of many. One of thousands." "Yes," the human said. "I did the work. I assembled the plates. I forged the circuits. But I am not its owner. I am part of a larger effort, a story told by many hands and many hearts. That is why your hunter failed. It was not my skill alone that protected him. It was the work of a people who fight together, not for glory, but for each other." The queen's crimson glow dimmed slightly. She bent closer, her face inches from the human's. "So the armor is alive in a way," she whispered. "It is more than steel. It is more than a tool. It carries a spirit I cannot destroy." The human nodded. "Yes, that is the truth of it. And now you see why a single name does not matter. There's no single name to claim victory over. There's only the work of countless humans working together, believing that the smallest actions, digging ore, teaching a skill, offering help can change everything. For a long moment, the room was silent. Even the generals, accustomed to the Queen's commands and her rage, waited in fear. They did not understand the conversation unfolding before them. They did not understand the human, or why his small presence could shift the balance of power in the empire. The Queen's voice broke the silence, quieter now, almost thoughtful. You speak of protection instead of domination. You fight to shield rather than destroy. Yes, the human replied calmly. That is why your hunter failed. That is why your armies cannot conquer what they do not understand. That is why this armor, though broken, endured. The Queen studied him, her ancient mind working faster than she could speak. She had faced countless opponents, each trying to outwit or overpower her. Yet this one, human, unarmed, fragile, almost insignificant by every measure of her empire, had shown her a kind of strength she could not crush. And you claim that courage belongs to all of them? She asked, her voice barely more than a growl. It belongs to anyone willing to act, the human said. It belongs to those who care enough to protect, even when they could conquer instead. That is the truth you cannot destroy, Alien Queen. It cannot be burned or shattered. It cannot be claimed with a fleet or stolen by fear. The Queen fell silent, her claws hovering just above the floor. Her throne, her empire, her centuries of conquest, everything she had relied on felt suddenly fragile. For the first time, she realized that not all victories could be won with fire and claws. Some victories required something she had never valued: understanding, humility, and respect for a people whose strength lay in the courage to protect one another. She looked down at the broken armor again. For a long moment, she did not move. Finally she spoke, her voice low and strange in its softness. You speak for many. Yes, the human said. And if I must, I will speak for them all. The Queen stared, her crimson glow dimming further. She had conquered worlds. She had destroyed armies. She had ruled stars. Yet here, in this silence, she felt a fear she could not name, because for the first time in her long reign, she understood that there was a power she could not dominate, a power born not of war, not of claws or fire, but of hope and protection. The throne room seemed suspended in time. Even the generals, beings who had crushed entire planets without hesitation, felt the weight of the moment. The human stood there, calm and unshakable, while the alien Queen paced slowly before him, her crimson eyes burning with a mixture of curiosity, anger, and something she had never known: doubt. You speak of hope, she said, her voice low, almost a whisper. Of protection. Of courage. Yet your species is weak, tiny, scattered. How can you possibly think this hope can withstand me? The human did not flinch. His hands, scarred and rough from years of labor, rested at his sides. Because hope is not about size, he said simply. It is about care. About who you choose to shield when the world is falling apart. It is about fighting not to conquer, but to survive and to protect others. The Queen stopped pacing. Her eyes narrowed. You speak in riddles, human. Words cannot stop armies. Words cannot shield flesh from claws. The human stepped forward, and the room seemed to grow quieter still. This armor, he said, his voice firm now, was made to protect a soldier, not to kill the strongest warrior in the galaxy. It was made so he could stand long enough to see the sun again, to return to those who loved him, to keep a promise he made to people he would never forget. That is why it survived your hunter. That is why he survived. For the first time, the Queen paused. She remembered the battle clearly, the hunter's fury, the human soldier staggering under blow after blow, yet still shielding others, still standing, still refusing to yield. It was not strength alone that had kept him alive. It was something else. Something the queen had never understood. What promise? She asked, her voice almost softer now, hesitant even. The human's gaze met hers. A promise that no one would die alone. That someone would always protect the weak. That someone would endure for others, even when the cost was their own life. That is why humans make armor. That is why we fight. Not for glory, not for conquest, but for each other. The queen's tail flicked nervously. She had never faced a species like this. She had never encountered a courage that was not driven by fear or ambition, a strength not built to dominate, but to endure. Her mind, sharp and ancient, struggled to contain the new understanding forming within her. She had underestimated humans. She had misunderstood them. The human took another step forward, his voice calm but carrying a strange weight. Do you see now why your hunter failed? Because strength alone cannot win against those who fight for more than themselves. Every strike I survived, every fire that did not kill me, it was because of the hands, the hearts, the hope of countless others who made this armor and trained me to protect others. That is our true weapon. The generals shifted uneasily. Many of them had fought entire civilizations and conquered them with brute force, yet even they felt the truth in his words. There was something impossible to destroy in humans, something invisible, resilient and united. The queen, tall and terrifying, stood silent for a long moment. She could feel it in emotion she had never welcomed, fear. Not the fear of death, not the fear of rebellion, but the fear of something she could not crush, a power she could not dominate. And you, she said finally, her voice low and measured, stand for all of them? Yes, the human said, unwavering. Because their courage, their hope, their promise cannot be claimed by one name. It belongs to all of us, and it survives in everyone willing to endure for someone else. The queen looked down at the broken armor again. She remembered the soldier inside it, staggering, wounded, yet still shielding others when he could have fled. She remembered the moment her hunter failed, the realization that no matter how powerful, no matter how fast, no matter how skilled, it had not won. The human's words echoed in her mind. It was not made to kill. It was made to protect. It carried promises. She stepped back. For the first time in centuries, she felt uncertainty tighten in her chest. A doubt she could not easily crush. A fear she could not strike down. The human continued, softly, almost a whisper meant only for her. That is our promise, alien queen. That is why humans endure. That is why we survive. That is why no single hunter, no single queen, can ever break us completely. The queen's crimson glow dimmed slightly as she considered his words. The hall, once filled with the echoes of power and fear, now seemed strangely quiet, almost reverent. She had always believed that might made the universe obey. Yet here, a single human, small, fragile, and unarmed, had shown her a truth she could not ignore. And in that silence, the human's promise became a weapon sharper than any blade, stronger than any army, and heavier than any fleet. The queen's tail lashed once, but this time not in anger. It was a nervous twitch. A flicker of realization passed through her. For the first time, she wondered if there was a force in the universe that even she could not conquer, and that force was the human heart. The throne room held its breath. Even the generals, creatures of countless worlds who had faced annihilation and death without fear, felt the tension of the moment. The alien queen, towering and radiant with crimson fury, stood over the human, her claws hovering above the black crystal floor. Her eyes, like twin suns, burned into him, demanding obedience, demanding truth, demanding the impossible. A single name for the armor that had defied her hunter. The human, small and fragile by comparison, did not flinch. His hands were scarred and calloused, evidence of years spent shaping metal and fire. His eyes were steady, calm, and filled with a quiet courage that no weapon in the universe could strike down. The room seemed heavier now, weighed down by expectation. The Queen's command echoed through the chamber. "Name the armorer. Who made the armor that resisted me?" The human remained silent. The Queen's claws scraped the floor, sending sparks across the black crystal. Her voice dropped to a low, dangerous growl. "I will ask again. I demand the name." Still silence. The generals shifted nervously. None of them had ever defied the Queen's orders. None of them had ever faced silence in the face of her wrath. One elder general stepped forward, trembling. "Your Majesty, perhaps. Humans do not name such people. Perhaps. It is not how they honor their makers." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "They honor the work, the purpose, the protection it gives," the general said. "They fight together. They protect each other. The maker is only one part of the whole." The Queen's crimson light flared, brighter than it had in decades. "I do not care for riddles. I demand a single name. A single mind I can claim." The human finally spoke. His voice was calm, soft, but carried across the room like a hammer striking steel. "I do not carry a single name, and yet I speak for them all." A hush fell. Every officer, every general, even the Queen herself paused. The weight of his words filled the chamber. "You," the Queen whispered, confused, "you claim the name of all who touched it." "Yes," the human said, stepping closer. "I am the armorer you seek, in part. But I am also their voice. Their courage lives in this armor. Their promise carried it when your hunters struck. Their hope gave it strength. I speak for every hand, every mind, every heart that made it possible." The Queen's claws lowered slightly. She had faced countless warriors, kings, gods, and monsters. She had conquered planets, destroyed fleets, and ruled stars. But here, a single human unarmed, fragile, mortal had stood before her and shattered centuries of certainty. He had faced her gaze without fear. And in that silence, he had claimed power she could not destroy. "Your voice carries the weight of many," she said, her tone almost reverent. "You speak for all of them?" "Yes," the human repeated. "Because if I do not, no one will. And if no one speaks, all of their work, all of their courage, all of their hope dies with silence. I will not let that happen." The room remained silent for a long moment. Even the generals could not find words. They had seen civilizations crushed, empires fall, heroes die. Yet none of that had prepared them for this. A human claiming the voices of thousands without arrogance, without pride, without fear. The Queen stepped back, her gaze falling on the broken armor again. She remembered the soldier who had worn it, the way he had shielded others even when wounded, the way he had endured attacks that should have killed him. She remembered the moment her hunter had failed. And she remembered the weight of the human's words. Courage, hope, protection, promise. "You claim the strength of your people," she said, quieter now. "And yet you are only one of them." "Yes," the human replied. "One of many. But sometimes, one voice is enough to speak for all. Sometimes it is enough to show that a people will not be broken." The Queen's tail flicked slowly. Her crimson glow softened. She had never paused. She had never doubted. She had never faced a force she could not strike down with claws, fleets, or fire. And yet now, she felt it, a fear unlike any other. Not the fear of death, not the fear of rebellion, but the fear of a truth she could not destroy. The generals waited, silent. They watched the Queen, expecting fury, expecting punishment, expecting death. But the Queen did not strike. She did not roar. She did not move. She listened. And then the human spoke again. Louder this time, not just to her, but to everyone in the hall, I am the armorer. I am the voice of all who built, all who hoped, all who endured. And I will speak for them, because their work, their courage, and their promise deserve to be heard." The room trembled with the weight of his words. The alien queen, conqueror of worlds, ruler of stars, felt a strange chill in her chest. She realized in that moment that power alone could not command respect, that fear alone could not ensure victory, that strength alone could not conquer hope. And for the first time in centuries, she felt it, a power she could not destroy, a human voice. One voice that carried the weight of 1,000 hearts. The throne room fell into an unnatural silence. Even the generals, hardened killers who had ruled conquered planets with fire and fear, dared not speak. The alien queen, the conqueror of 1,000 worlds, remained standing, her crimson glow dimmed, her claws still raised but motionless. She looked at the human before her, the one who had refused to bend, the one who had spoken for all the countless unknown hands and hearts that had made the armor survive. The human's voice had carried the weight of hope, of courage, of promises made and kept. It was more powerful than fleets, more lasting than fire, more unstoppable than fear. And now, face to face with the ruler of the galaxy, he had proven a truth the queen had never expected. Some strength could not be conquered. Some power could not be broken. The queen stepped back from the black crystal floor, studying him carefully. Her eyes, once filled only with rage and dominance, now held curiosity and something like awe. "You speak for all of them?" she asked quietly, her voice almost unfamiliar to her own ears. "Yes," the human replied. "I speak for everyone who touched this armor, for those who fought, for those who endured, for those who hoped. I am their voice because their courage cannot be silenced." The generals shuffled nervously. They had obeyed every command of the queen without question, yet here she paused. For centuries, she had crushed rebellion, extinguished defiance, and ruled fear into obedience. And now she was silent. The human took a slow breath. "Your hunter failed because it fought against more than a soldier. It fought against hope, against promises kept, against a people who protect each other. You cannot destroy what is built on that." The queen's claws lowered completely. Her crimson glow softened, like embers fading after a storm. She had seen civilizations fall. She had annihilated armies. She had burned worlds. But she had never seen a force that could survive her fury, a power that could resist her fleets, a courage she could not crush. "Then what am I to do?" she asked, her voice steady but quieter than it had been in centuries. "I cannot destroy them, and yet they resist everything I command." The human stepped forward. "You cannot destroy what is not meant to be conquered. You cannot take names from a people who fight for each other. You can only respect it, or leave it be." For a long moment, the queen was still. She thought of the soldier, of the armor, of the countless hands that had made it, the mothers, the teachers, the miners, the old men who passed their knowledge forward. She realized that power alone could not rule the universe, not truly. There were things beyond fleets, beyond weapons, beyond fear, trust, hope, courage, and care. Finally she spoke. "Then leave this system. Do not return. We will not conquer Earth, or any world like it." Gasps echoed through the throne room. The generals looked at each other in disbelief. No one had ever dared defy the alien queen, and now she was defying herself. "Your Majesty," one of them whispered. "I have decided," she said. Her voice rang with authority, but it no longer carried rage. It carried understanding. "We will not fight what we cannot destroy. We will not burn what cannot be broken. Leave this world and its people alone." The human nodded. His chains were removed, and he stood free. He looked back at the queen. "If your fleets need a name for the makers of the armor, remember this. We have no single name. But we are many, and we call each other. He paused, letting the words settle in the silence of the hall. Family. The queen studied him, then looked at the shattered chest plate at her feet. She did not speak. She did not roar. For the first time in her long reign, she understood that silence could speak louder than any weapon. And a single human voice could end a war without striking a single blow. The generals bowed, unsure what to do. The queen returned to her throne, but she did not sit. She allowed the human to leave alive, and for the first time, she considered what it truly meant to rule. Not by fear, not by force, but by understanding the strength of those who endure for each other. And so the human walked away, free, carrying the weight of thousands who had remained unseen, unheard, yet unbroken. The stars themselves seemed to remember that day, the day silence fell in the throne room of the greatest conqueror the galaxy had ever known. And a single human voice, brave, small, and steady, changed the course of history forever. The alien queen remained seated in her throne hall, staring at the black crystal floors. She had ruled empires, destroyed worlds, and yet she had learned something no battle could ever teach. Some power is greater than conquest. Some courage is beyond domination. Some voices, though human, fragile, and alone, can speak louder than 1,000 empires. And in that moment, she understood the truth, a promise, a hope. And a single human heart could shake the stars themselves.